Pleasant good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in. It is Sports by the Book Football Frenzy. It is October. How about that? Already a month in to everything.
Life goes by fast, my friend.
It is a snap of the fingers, a blink of the eyes, as Vinny would say. Very quick through the first month of football season. The other voice you just heard is Chris Andrews, of course, the Sportsbook director here at the South Point. Vinny Magliulo, also of the Sportsbook here behind us. Gaughn Gaming as well, as always. These two gentlemen with us for 2 hours. We'll see Jimmy Vacarro in about an hour from now, if he's back from the spa by then, fellas.
Keep your fingers crossed.
Afternoon briefing.
Afternoon briefing. Yes, very good. Very good, Vinny. Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to today on the college end. Pros, again, only 13 games left on the card after last night's wacko game between Atlanta and Tampa, where Tampa should have won the game 9 different times and managed to lose in overtime, 36-30. It only took Kirk Cousins throwing for over 500 yards to get Atlanta a win and a cover a night ago. But we'll get to the NFL as we always do in the 3 o'clock Pacific hour. We got to start tonight. We have 4 college football games. And the game I was willing to leave off of here, Chris, which is Jacksonville State and Kennesaw State. Throw out the record books with those teams, Chris. 17.
I don't have any record books with these two teams. I don't know anything about them.
This is year 1 for Kennesaw in the FBS level. Chris, 17-point line, but you said they're all over one side in this game.
I opened 14. I'm flooded. I had lunch with Michael Gaughn today, and he's at, how's it look tonight? What's it look like? I said, well, the big game of the night is Kennesaw State. Who? He says, yeah, believe me, I'm asking the same thing. But that's what we need tonight. I mean, I'm flooded on that side. I opened 14. I'm up to 17. Wow. I made the number 13, but I'm going to say don't take that for anything because, I like I said, I'm still learning about really both these teams. Jacksonville was last year their first year or 2 years ago? I can't remember.
I think this is year 3.
This is year 3. It sounds about right.
I think
but Kennesaw, year 1, and I don't know what to make of them. I'm trying to get caught up on them, but I personally, I would respect the move. Doesn't mean that is going to win, but I would certainly respect the move because I'm sure there's people out there that know a lot more about this team than I do.
And quicker movement, right, Chris? In chunks, too.
Oh,
I mean, obviously, these are not half-point increments.
They laid me 15. So I went from 14 to 15. Then they laid me to 15. I went to 16 and a half. I said, I'm not going to mess around with this game.
Now it 17.
Now we're at 17.
17. That was a move this morning.
What do you need, Jeff? What do you need? You need the hook?
I'm kind of in the same boat as Chris. Those CUSA teams, I'm just kind of ignoring because they're not going to play a lot of games left against teams that I have real numbers on, and they're irrelevant for the college football playoff. So if I need to dictate, I understand smaller games usually is better for the better, but I really have next to nothing on Kennesaw State.
Well, this is the advantage of the gambler over the bookmaker. Now, believe me, I'm not complaining. We do fine at the end of the year. But the gambler gets to pick what games he wants to play. And if you want to concentrate on this conference and on these teams, you could do fairly well. Whereas I got, I think I got 50 employees under my wing, and I got all kind of games, and we're getting ready for the NBA preseason and hockey preseason. So I would not trust my numbers on a game like this. But like I said, I'm trying to catch up.
And it's not casual money. This is
it's all pro. I would imagine it's all pro money.
Not casual.
Sure.
Yeah. To Chris's point.
All right, the other games tonight. We kind of go in a crescendo here in the rotation order. We start in the Big 12. TCU went on the road, beat Kansas last week in Kansas City. Boy, what a horrible start for the Jayhawks. We'll get to them later. TCU against Houston. Just sometimes you find these Power Conference teams that are in total transition. And we talked about at the beginning of the year with Houston that this is going to be a hell of an undertaking for Willie Fritz, who is a program builder to begin with, and it's sure looking that way. Houston has not scored in the last 2 games. They're getting outscored 54-0 the last 2 games against Cincinnati and Iowa State. Tonight they take on TCU, 16.5 with a total of 51. Chris, we did on the parlay card, I saw you at 17. But in actuality, 16.5 on this game.
Well, I made the number 17 myself. I looked at those same two scores you did, Jeff, and I made it 17. But TCU hasn't exactly been, tearing it up either. So I thought, it's one of those. I moved that one fairly quickly because I thought the favorite's probably the right side here.
For the total to, be up a couple of points now too, you're going to need Houston to break that 2-game streak of going scoreless if you want this one to go. I'm not so sure that TCU is going to go over by themselves.
This is the right defense to go against if you're Houston to try to break the streak. North of 7 yards of play multiple times already this year against TCU's defense. All right, conference game. Yes, conference game. Michigan State at Oregon. Big Ten game, guys. The new reality that is college football here in 2024. 23.5 with the Ducks at home. I'll just say this with Oregon. We've now seen with the Ducks, they've played 6 high-end quarters. And in those 6 high-end quarters, they've looked as good as anyone. Yeah. The rest of the time, it's like, this team's really one of the top 10 teams in the country. And look, it shouldn't hurt them tonight. Michigan State looked totally overwhelmed by a high-end team last week in Ohio State. And I would be surprised if that doesn't happen again tonight on the road in Eugene. But with Ohio State looming, for Oregon, they got to get their consistency right, Chris, because it has not happened so far through the first month of the season.
We need Oregon a little bit tonight. I wore my Oregon shirt today. It's very subtle.
Very subtle, yes. As subtle as Oregon can get, Chris.
Pretty much, yeah.
They only have about 50 kits.
Yeah. I made the number a little bit higher. I made it 28. And it kind of gets little wonky at that point. This is not one of the games I would bet. I kind of like Oregon. I'm not crazy about them. I think Michigan State, regardless of what happened last week, they've been a little better than I thought they were going to be this year. And in all honesty, Jeff, Oregon's probably been a little worse than I thought they'd be this year. So this number, I have no real beef with this number.
It was a take at a 24, right? So, 3.5 touchdowns.
Yeah, makes sense.
In a look-ahead spot.
Yes, Oregon and Ohio State is next week. It's a pretty good football game.
Oh, man, guys. I'd love to be there for that.
I game in Odson as well.
Have you been to Oregon?
I have not.
I got the shirt because my one daughter, she wanted to stay out west. My other daughter wanted to go back east. So we toured a lot of schools out west here. Mm-hmm. And, I really liked Oregon. I wouldn't have minded if she had gone there.
University of Oregon, University of Washington, those campuses are supposed, and obviously a little more urban for UW, but look, it's a hell of a place to catch a football game. I know that.
I really like the town myself. I think it's pretty cool.
We'll keep it even closer here to town next. Yeah. The biggest game in UNLV football history until the game 2 weeks from now when they host Boise State is what I'm going with at this point. UNLV hosts Syracuse tonight. Boy, this game did lose a little luster with Syracuse blowing that game 2 weeks ago at home to Stanford, because this would be ranked v. ranked if it wasn't for that. And here you go. Look, Chris, you guys opened 7. It's down to 6. Other shops opened this game at 4, 3.5, and got bet up, the ones who opened it on early Sunday. I am really fascinated to see how this game plays out, because Syracuse weren't great last week against Holy Cross off their loss. It's weird to say, but I think this is a big step up in the way of defenses that Syracuse has seen so far this year with UNLV. And for UNLV, they already beat Kansas. I get it. They beat Houston. I get it. Now the expectation's on you. No, you're not, no one's sleeping on you anymore. This is a huge spot for UNLV with, again, 2 weeks from now, the big game looming against Boise State.
Well, I've said it before in this show, and I'll repeat it. Sometimes price will tell you the winner. Mm-hmm. And I think for UNLV to be favored over a Power 4 team, that's had not like the greatest decade or two, but still they're a Power 4 team and have won a couple of games along the way. I think price is kind of telling you the winner. And I really like, and I'm not a UNLV fan. Everybody knows I'm a Nevada fan, Nevada Reno. But I like UNLV in this spot. I think that they are clearly the better team. And I did open it higher than anybody. And I'm going to try to go into this game needing UNLV.
I think what the total is telling you as well is that if Syracuse is going to prevail, they need to they need to try to have some ball control. I mean, the Rebel defense is good also. I mean, you have a total here that's moved down over 5 points off the opener, so it's sitting at 55 now. So I think if you want Syracuse to try to have some ball control, and the Rebel defense has been great too. So I think you have those factors going towards the under.
I think this is actually one where the correlation's a little bit different than the market is playing this, guys. I think if this is an over game, it plays into Syracuse's hands because they have the better they have a good offense, and they have question marks on defense. It means their offense is able to stay in, at least to me, that their offense was able to score and keep them in the game. If this game goes under, UNLV winning this game 31-14, something in that pocket wouldn't shock me one bit. I don't think Syracuse is as bad as they showed against Stanford.
Probably not.
I don't know if they're as good as they showed against Georgia Tech a few weeks ago, but again, this is just such a gigantic spot for the Rebels, who were in every facet last week unbelievably good against a good Fresno State team. And they just
pretty lucky too, though.
Oh, sure, but they still beat them up pretty good.
I know, and I liked Fresno last week. But before we move on, like I said, I had lunch with Michael Gaughn today. Steve Stallworth was there too. And Steve,
UNLV legend himself.
Yeah, I mean, one of the few quarterbacks who finished UNLV with a winning record. But anyway, Steve was telling me, and he's still very close to the program, they don't miss the kid who left.
Sure.
Yeah, they from a team standpoint. But he told me the guy that's starting now, and I'm terrible with the name, but the guy that's starting now, he said he thought the kid was pretty good. He says the backup he thought was better than the other two together.
Yeah.
So right now, I don't think the quarterback situation there is going to do anything but help UNLV. They got rid of a kid that evidently was a malcontent, and right now, I think a lot of things are going UNLV's way.
Sorry, Vinny. I was surprised, and we mentioned this last week. I was surprised that Hajj Malik Williams wasn't a starter from day one.
There was a battle all spring and summer. I mean, there was that was probably the biggest position battle on the team.
Yeah, Cameron Friel's the third guy who's currently the backup, who we have seen actually play in the past a little bit for UNLV as well. And of course, Matthew Sluka, the guy who is no longer with the program because of an NIL dispute. All right, let's go to tomorrow. We start in the ACC. Talk about a hellish 2 weeks for North Carolina. My God. Last week, big lead against Duke, blow it outright. The week before, they give up 70 points to James Madison. Now they take on Pitt, who...
Undefeated Pitt.
A pleasant surprise for Pitt. I thought this was going to be a bottom feeder in this league. They're 4-0. They won the backyard brawl. They had an epic comeback against Cincinnati as well. Eli Holstein has played great when he's had to so far. Pitt 2.5-point favorites on the road in Chapel Hill for this one against the Heels.
Talked to our good friend Dave Damashek the other day, and Dave's gone to Indiana.
Okay.
But he's from Pittsburgh. He's rooting for a Pitt-Indiana first-round playoff game.
He's the only one in the country doing so, Chris.
He's the only one in the country that actually believes it is so. But anyway, Pitt, I very surprised Pitt's in this position. I made him a smaller favorite. I made him only a 1-point favorite. I opened the game 3 down to 2.5. But essentially, we're getting a lot of two-way action on this game. This should be a pretty good betting game.
Look, this team that's certainly overachieved, and North Carolina, as you mentioned, Jeff, kind of hit the brakes, or they got the brakes slammed on them. So, but credit Pitt. Listen, we've had to adjust their power rate even from when we were looking at them last summer for the games of the year.
I will tell you with this Pitt team, how many times can you come out of a double-digit hole late in the game and get away with it? They've already done it twice. I don't know. This kind of feels like if North Carolina doesn't win this game, their season's totally donezo at this point, and Mike Brown might even just resign mid-season at this rate with the last 2 weeks. Again, 70 to James Madison, 20-point lead blown to your biggest rival. It's on the brink right now in Chapel Hill for sure.
Let me ask you this too: is Brown such a good coach, or is he just a great recruiter?
Because hasn't that always been the question back?
Yeah, I mean, and really, it's coming up to we're going to test his coaching ability right now. He clearly doesn't have the athletes that of course, then I'm at Texas. I'm not sure he even has ACC level athletes here. So it's going to come down to coaching acumen with him. And I don't know. I have a lot of questions about that.
Let's go to Gainesville next. For Central Florida, these games are circled on the calendar years in advance when Florida actually agrees to play the game. And at the Swamp, not only has Florida agreed to play the game, they're an underdog in this game. Chris, you opened pick, and the bettors were all over the Knights early.
Yeah.
And now it's come back down the ladder. High as 3 on Central Florida, back to 1.5 on this one. Again, I mean, this is a humongous deal for the Central Florida program, getting a shot at the Gators, especially in a down year for them.
Yeah, I kind of like Florida in this game. I'm not crazy about it, but I like them. And I saw finally we got a little bit of resistance. Like you said, we're up as high as 3, down to 2, and then shortly before we came on the air, one of my sharp players took the +2, so we're down to 1.5. This is not. If anybody waiting for my plays later on, this is not one of my plays, but I do kind of like Florida in this game.
Recruiting wars are not always skewed to, or more important to, the smaller school or the non-popular school. By the way, not that Central Florida is non-popular. It's one of the highest enrollments in the country,
place,
right? Because
100%.
they've got on campus and it's a commuter school as well.
Yeah.
So, but it's also big for Florida, right? And especially with the kind of year they're having. So this is an important game for them, and getting points. Albeit, if you had the 3, that's a terrific number to get. But if you like them in this game, you're also going to probably either sprinkle some or just bet them outright to win a game on the money line.
At the beginning of the week, I wanted to bet Central Florida, but after watching them last week, just get demolished by Colorado in every facet of the game. And look, maybe the Buffs are better than we thought.
There's a good chance of that.
That is probably the case. But that was Central Florida was a 2-touchdown favorite in that game, and they looked like a 3-touchdown underdog the whole afternoon.
They got boat raced.
They got crushed. That was one of the great in-game scenarios of the year, because we've talked about this. The algorithms were not properly pricing the game based off of what was happening. So I got Colorado up 7-0 still as a $2 underdog.
Really?
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's easy as it gets when it's all said.
I would hope that was not a human.
It was. No, I know it wasn't. Trust me, I know it wasn't. All right, this is an interesting game in the ACC. Louisville gave Notre Dame a great game, just came up short when it was all said and done. I thought there was a whole lot of ref hijinks at the end of the first half in that game, but that's a different discussion for a different day. They take on SMU, who has very much stabilized the ship after a very rocky start, with decimating TCU and Florida State back-to-back at home in Dallas. Now they go on the road to Louisville. It's an interesting game, Chris. 6.5 right now on the cards at home with a total of 56.5.
This is one of those games where just pure numbers, I made Louisville a 10-point favorite. Then the more I started looking at it, that looks a little high, doesn't it? So I kind of agree with where we are right now with the number 6.5, 7. I guess mostly 6.5 now in the market. I think that's probably a better number than what mine was. I think I probably punished SMU more than I should have for their early season performance. And one of the reasons is, Vinny, we both had high expectations for SMU.
We did.
So I probably, overcompensated for that mistake. But now I think they're on track to be, a pretty darn good team.
They got a shot in the ACC now. Their only loss was out of conference to BYU, who's been a shock so far this year.
Another shock, yeah.
Big surprise. This game came down a point on the total. I think this total is going to go back up.
I 100% agree.
I really
with you
think it'll go. In fact, it'll go through the opener of 57.5. In my opinion, I mean, both of these teams like to get up and down the field and press. So, not if you they definitely rather play offense than defense.
No, that's for sure. And look, we've talked about Louisville. Jeff Brom is a really good football coach.
You can see his effect on Purdue.
Oh well,
by leaving.
Purdue, and I think Ryan Walters kind of has the Barry Odom thing going for him, where he wasn't quite ready to be a head coach and is just getting a little overwhelmed in the Power 4 realm.
Yet they still bet them every week.
We're not even bothering with that game today.
Yeah,
Did they bet them again against Wisconsin this week?
Yeah.
All right, good for everyone on that. It feels like every year, actually, and it happens in the NFL too, Chris, where there's just one team that the sharper bettors just love, and the numbers like, oh, we got to keep betting Purdue, and they just keep getting their teeth beat in
and then
every single week.
See, I told you.
Yeah, exactly. They'll win. They'll pop. They're like, all right, maybe Purdue will upset Wisconsin this week, and they'll be like, all right, we got you.
They'll be 1-8. I knew they were better than that.
Louisville 6.5. I agree 100% with what you said, Vinny. I think this game.
Total.
I'm surprised the total's been bet down.
Mm-hmm.
I think Louisville's defense is actually pretty good, but SMU's offense the last few weeks has looked like the
Different
offense
animal.
we expected them to be, and we know Louisville's offense is high end. All right, well, the oldest rivalry in the South, fellas, Auburn and Georgia. Georgia, of course, coming off of a loss in what will likely be the best game of the college football regular season, in a 4-touchdown hole at Alabama, almost pulled the whole comeback off, actually grabbed the lead before succumbing to that Ryan Williams epic touchdown to lose by 7, and now 1 for Georgia. Auburn just there's teams like this every year who just find ways to lose in the worst possible way, and Auburn in complete control last week, most of the way against Oklahoma, inexplicably throwing a pick 6 when basically they were 1 first down away from running the clock out, lose again. That's 3 out of 4 losses, and all those losses, by the way, coming at Jordan Hare as well this year for Auburn. Yeah. They go on the road to a ticked-off Georgia team. You can't envision many worse spots for this Auburn squad coming in here against Georgia. Awful loss.
That game last week, I had it off in my corner TV.
Yeah.
I really wasn't watching it. And I saw something on Twitter. So I said, boy, can you believe that comeback by Oklahoma? What? Where did I have that game? What happened? Auburn. I think Auburn has a lot of troubles. And I agree with you that I think that you're going to see a Georgia team that's going to be spitting fire. And I can't believe they bet Auburn in this game. I opened at 25. I'm down to 22.5. I like Georgia in this game. Not enough to bet them. I don't like laying those kind of points. But I think Georgia's the right side here. I think they really smashed this team largely because of that loss, and largely because Auburn finds a way to screw things up seemingly every week.
And Vinny, they were betting Auburn like crazy last week.
Yes,
they took Auburn from a field goal dog to almost a field goal favorite in that game against Oklahoma.
And you know what? This number, I believe, it will come up too. Now, will it get back to the opener of 25? I'm not so sure, but I think to Chris's point, this is a team that's angry. Kirby Smart's got to get them back on track. I mean, it wasn't like they were distracted. I mean, you got to give full marks to Alabama, who just played a much better game defensively as well, and just completely rattled Georgia in every way in that first half. But credit them for the way they came back. They're back on track. It's not a season-ending loss, and they know it. But they need to get back into playoff form. And this is probably a game where that gets them back on track. I mean, Auburn is just as you guys indicated, finding ways to lose. Great to compete, but man, there's something to miss there. And this number, I believe, will come back up.
Well, Georgia gets Texas in 2 weeks. So
that's another big one.
That's
at Texas, right?
Saturday in the SEC is Georgia at Texas and Alabama at Tennessee.
Great games.
I mean, just same Saturday. That's sick. That's sick how good that is.
We got the appetizer coming up this week, Ohio State and Oregon.
Yeah, well, and also Red River as well, which is kind of crazy that Red River's the undercard for Texas, but it is this year just because of getting Georgia in that game in Austin the week after everyone gets to get hammered for an extra 3.5 hours before the game this year at the Texas State Fair. All right, let's go to Tallahassee next. DJ Uiagalelei is out with an injury, and look, I don't want to sound curt here, guys, but you can't think the quarterback play is going to get much worse for Florida State than it's been through the first 5 weeks with Brock Glenn, who looked severely overmatched in his few games last year. Florida State still won his starts until the bowl game a year ago. 14.5 in this game, 15 elsewhere, 47 a total. Vinny, you, me, and Ryan McCormick talked about this on Monday when we were going through college football power rankings. Clemson very quietly, other than the second half against Georgia, has been pretty damn good so far this year, and there's no reason to think it won't continue today against a battered Florida State team.
I think they're fine with that, too. Let all the attention go elsewhere while they sort things out, and they have. I mean, you take that second half away in the Georgia game, which, again, not a devastating loss, maybe more psychological than anything else, but credit the staff and the players for getting back on track. I mean, look, without their starting quarterback, they're still a 2-touchdown favorite here. It tells you what's happening at Florida State. Now, Florida State will be up for this, looking to play the role of spoiler, right, for the rest of the season, and try to build for next year. But this one here, a toggler, right? 14.5, taking 14.5 and laying 14. So. That's where we've seen so far, Chrissy.
I made the game 14, so I have no opinion here. But, Jeff, you're right on when you say Clemson's had one bad half.
Yeah.
And one bad half of football. Unfortunately, the entire world watched
Everyone
that
saw
game.
it.
But I think that's probably been, in some ways, Vinny, like you said, maybe to their benefit. They're kind of flying under the radar. I wouldn't be surprised to see them win the ACC and wind up with a home game or a bye in week 1 and in a home game after that.
Look, Clemson is it's very strange because I think a lot of people and I'm guilty of this as well, have kind of segmented this at this point of, all right, a lot has to happen for the Big 12 or the ACC to get 2 bids in the college football playoff, which is how strong the top of the SEC looks this year. And again, the Big Ten is going to get 4 bids, more likely than not, even if they don't necessarily deserve it. But Clemson is that one team. If, let's say, Clemson and Miami both go to Charlotte, with Miami and Clemson both at 11-1, I think the committee's going to be hard-pressed to leave an 11-2 Clemson or an 11-2 Miami out, especially if it's a close game in Charlotte in the ACC.
It'll depend on Notre Dame. Notre Dame will impact.
They're the other
scenario,
X factor, which
they'll have an impact on that.
It's interesting. The whole we don't know. It's a first go around with a 12-team playoff. We don't know exactly what the committee's going to do. The wild card with Notre Dame on top of it is how are they going to treat a loss to a team that likely ends up with 4 or 5 losses as a 30-point favorite.
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
It's still Notre Dame.
I know,
and I can remember years when they were like. 4-2 and Len Berman being on NBC. They still have a chance to win the national championship. Jeez, Lenny, come on. Come on.
By the way, Notre Dame's schedule after that win against Louisville was gigantic because other than the game in L.A. the last week of the season against USC, legitimate argument to be made, the other 2 most difficult games are against undefeated Army and undefeated Navy right now, where Notre Dame's going to be more than 2 touchdowns in both of those games. Yeah,
boy, I think if I'm a Notre Dame fan, I'd be rooting for those 2 teams to keep on winning.
Hey, there's an opportunity that it's 11-0 Army against 11-0 Navy in the AAC title game, and they do it over again the next week in Army-Navy, Chris.
Wow.
There is a real shot at that right now.
Something.
All right, let's go to Columbia, South Carolina next. The Gamecocks take on Ole Miss. Boy, we mentioned this on Monday. If you're Ole Miss, that is a gut punch loss to take, even in this new format, because you really, really, really narrow your margin for error with taking a loss like that at home as a big favorite against Kentucky, who had already had 2 losses on their docket. Not to say Kentucky isn't a good team. But
their defense was terrific.
But that's a game. If you have legitimate college football aspirations, you got to find a way to win if you're Ole Miss, and they didn't. And now they go to South Carolina, who has been at 3-1, a complete pain in the ass so far, for lack of a better phrase, in their first 4 games. Really should have beat LSU. Lost that game by 3. Decimated Kentucky. Good defense. Lenora Sellers is back. South Carolina's 8.5 at home. This is a brutal back-to-back for Ole Miss against two teams that were not supposed to be big-time players that have ended up being better than thought.
The thing about Ole Miss last week, we knew it going in. I think we mentioned it on the show. First legitimate defense with Power 4 athletes that they had to face. And, they couldn't pull out the victory. And, there was I wasn't all that shocked. You probably weren't either.
No.
I know you're a Kentucky guy. I think this is another tough game. But, I made the number 8.5, 9. So I have no real opinion on this game. Let me see what I did make it exactly. I made it. I think I made it 10. I like them a little bit. If they get a chance to go up, I think that they will. Another team that'll step on the gas probably a little bit more if they can manage to get a lead. I don't think they'll want to relinquish that this week.
Kiffin's got to, he's got to get them right mentally, right psychologically after that loss here. I mean, and you know what? And we're going to need Mississippi in this game so far the way they're betting it, I think.
So far, yeah.
So it's, it's fine. I think they have to get their, another tough defense they're going against, and that's what I think Kiffin's got to really figure out. Like, listen, we just can't, run the same things against really good defenses, and the defenses are gonna get tougher as they go.
And I will say this with Ole Miss, and I throw Ole Miss and Tennessee in the same vein. They beat the hell out of teams they're much better than, and then and maybe this Tennessee team is different than it is in the past. Very rarely, when they had to class up, they came through. Really, just that Alabama win 2 years ago is really the only time that this happened under Heupel. It's kind of the same deal with Ole Miss at this point, where you class up and it just isn't there. And look, this is for Jackson Dart, for this offense. If you go to South Carolina and get upset for the second straight week, forget it. You're done.
You're going to a minor bowl.
You're done. You're not making a college football playoff because you still have a trip to Baton Rouge, which, by the way, is next week. Weird sandwich spot here. And you still have to play Georgia.
Sure.
Yeah. You have to be perfect to get in those non-LSU Georgia games at this point if you're going to have a shot and go 1-1 in those other two. Losing that game really messed with their margin for error on this.
I still have a vision of Nick Saban yelling at Lane Kiffin, would you run the ball?
Real quickly on this game, it's not the sexiest game on the card that we have next. Wake Forest is a 4-point underdog in Raleigh against NC State here, Chris, with a total of 52.5.
Well, we opened the game 6. I'm not a 4. I've got a lot of money on the dog in this game. Again, what did I make this game? I actually made it a little bit higher. I thought that the opening number even was a little bit cheap on NC State. But that's another team that's been very disappointing to all of us this year. Yes. One of the most. But I'm surprised it's showing up against Wake Forest. We didn't expect much out of them, but here they are with the money on them. So I'll be needing NC State one more time.
Under money shoe, as shown, right, by 3 points. So I think McCall. Have they had an official word on McCall yet?
I haven't seen anything yet.
Questionable last time we saw a quarterback for NC State. And, guys, let's face it, and, we should take a minute just to wish our best for the folks down there recovering from that awful storm. And listen, whether you're from there or not, it impacts the entire state and that whole region. So that's a reality that, because there's some connections to the teams in that state, in that region, right? You don't have to be just in Western Carolina to be impacted by it. So
I'm sure you have friends and family who are somewhat affected.
Yeah. So
another North Carolina team in action. They go to Atlanta Duke, undefeated Duke, somehow, some way.
5-0, right?
The hands all over it yet again on the Blue Devils here, taking on Georgia Tech. 9.5, Chris. Actually, just moved to 9.5. Dude, that's now the high that you guys have had on this game.
9.5, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they took the 9, right, previously.
This has been an interesting
two-way action.
Been an interesting mover. As low as 7, now as high as 9.5, total from 54 to 53 on this one.
Well, I made the number 8, so I have no beef with the number, but this game is garnering quite a bit of action. Maybe we've got a lot of Ann followers out there who are all over Duke, and maybe some people are saying, she's due for a loss, this girl. I'm going to time to get you go to the well. But, yeah, great action on this game. Yeah, whatever comes up, I'm fine with. Like I said, I made the number 8, so I'm okay.
Would you make it, Ann? Very good.
Duke plus price on the money line, Vinny.
Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, look. I mean,
Yes, you'll get a good one here.
Oh, yeah.
Get a good price here. But terrific start. Definitely one of the big surprises for us this year, and have to adjust accordingly. I mean, there's no fluke. They're playing good football. Deserve that consideration.
Keeping in the ACC, Virginia hosting Boston College. Thomas Castellanos, who missed last week's game, and boy, was Boston College fortunate to get out with a win last week against Western Kentucky.
Without him,
they were down 2 scores in the second half. That was a really nice comeback engineered by James, the backup quarterback, in order to steal that one from Western Kentucky. Chris, now it's 1 with Castellanos reportedly cleared, according to Pete Thamel of ESPN. Open 4, now 1. I'm going to be honest with you, with Castellanos cleared now, I'm a little surprised that Boston College hasn't become the favorite yet in this game.
Still time.
Yeah, I am too. And just so you know, we did move it very quickly when we found out, because we thought that he would be in. Then we heard he was out. So we moved from 4. I think I might have gone directly to 1 on the news. But yeah, Jeff, I like Boston College in this spot. I think that Bill O'Brien, what screwed him in Houston in the NFL was him being the general manager.
100%.
I think he's a hell of a coach. He wasn't a very good general manager.
Nope.
And me as a Penn State fan, a lot of times I wish he would just stayed at Penn State, But I like them in this spot. I like them a lot. BC is definitely one of my plays this week.
And Virginia's struggling, right? I mean, let's face it. So, but I think there'll be some continued money for BC. And to your point, Jeff, they'll probably go off the favorite.
Yeah, Virginia is an unimpressive 3-1 so far. Needed basically a miraculous comeback to beat Wake in week 2. Got pretty well handled.
It's a misleading 3-1.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
they were thoroughly beat up by Maryland in a 2-touchdown game, and then Coastal Carolina turnovers kind of turned that game towards Virginia 2 weeks ago. Now 1. All right, the first of the Commander-in-Chief Trophy games this year, guys. Navy goes to Colorado Springs to take on Air Force, and something strange has happened in this game, Chris. Folks have bet the over in this game. We know the history.
It's a pretty low total.
I know, but we know the history in these games going under, regardless of how low it is.
Yeah.
Navy's a 10-point favorite on the road. I know this is the worst Air Force team in a very long time, but you always kind of have to just hesitate when you see a double-digit line in these games and be like, okay, can Navy win this game 24-3? Can Navy win this game 27-3? Like something like that? Or is this going to be a classic one of these games that comes down to the final play?
I like Navy a little higher. I made the number 10. So I mean, nothing that I would
on it right now.
Beat down the doors to go bet them. But boy, this Air Force team is bad, and we kind of got tipped off on it earlier in the year.
The San Jose
when they played
game,
at San Jose. Now there's a lot of other factors there. The coach from San Jose,
Niumatalolo.
Yeah, he was familiar with with this type of an offense.
Coached Navy for over a decade.
He coached for a long time. So that was maybe 2 ways to look at it. But nonetheless, Air Force has not done much of anything since then. I think there's a lot of problems with that team. And, these are the guys defending our country. They don't exactly go out and tell you everything that's going on in the football team. And obviously there's a lot of football's kind of secondary. They got more important issues there. But I think Navy right now is a pretty darn good football team. I've loved the Air Force for many, many years. Remember them upsetting Notre Dame, playing really well against a lot of really good teams, but this is just not a good team. Gun to my head, I'd probably take Navy, but Jeff, if this thing wound up 17-10, would you be all that surprised?
Not one bit.
Yeah.
Well, looks like they're laying 9.5 and taking 10, right? So that's kind of been the trend so far. And then we did find the high mark for the total at 38. So that I think some under money trickled in there, but it is a surprise to see how much over money there's been. I mean, how low could you make it?
Yeah.
34.5.
Yeah, that is a good question. How low can you go on this game? Again, Navy and Army both undefeated. There is a real path to 11-0 and 11-0 in an AAC title game, which would produce a lot of drama with Army Navy the next week. Maybe one of them would be in the playoff, and it's like,
why not?
do we how full board do we go? Like, there are a lot of weird things.
They're gonna play.
I know. There are gonna be a lot of weird things that could pop up from that potentially.
Yeah, I got the Bobby Knight story that I've told.
I know.
Those two hate each other.
I know.
But again, I always root for these for the military teams. I always have. I got to give them, just a lot of credit for even just being there.
Let's remember this: with the 12-team playoff this year, don't think for 1 minute that there's not going to be controversy, like who got in and who didn't, and who was on the bubble and all. That bubble conversation is going to go on. If they had 24 teams in the playoff,
we got 68 in basketball.
I know exactly. So it's going to continue.
Before we get to Alabama and Vanderbilt, quick check-in on the chat. Birdie's in there watching for the first time, loving the information.
Okay.
Right, Thank you for funding us. We appreciate it here every Friday for this show and throughout the week right here on the channel. Dean's watching as always, Wagon Sports, and some guy named Vince is watching as well from Las Vegas.
Vince, I think his name sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Well, Vinny doesn't. Well, his laptop's right in front of him. It's the paper kind, so we know it's not him.
That's right. It's definitely not me.
No, right.
I'm in the live chat.
Looking at Bama and Vanderbilt here, guys. So Vandy, last time we saw them, they're losing in overtime to a top 10 team on the road by the rankings, maybe not the power ratings. Alabama, of course, coming off of, Epic might not even do what happened on Saturday justice in that game against Georgia. Chris, 23 at the moment. You guys are market high on this game. It's 22.5, and the bettors have bet the doors in this game in Nashville against Alabama.
I did make it higher. I just think right now Alabama has so much talent, probably a lot more than I thought they did. I didn't think Milroe was going to be a potential number one draft choice, but right now the way he's playing, he's certainly in the conversation. I don't know where it's going to go from here, but I think they just have so much more talent than Vanderbilt. I'd like the number a little bit higher, although I understand the philosophy. They just came off. Not only was it a huge game, not only was it a great game, this could easily determine who's going to be the overall number one seed between Bama and Georgia. So it's huge on so many levels. Are they going to let down a little bit here? Probably a little bit, but I think they still have enough talent to overcome this number.
That's the key. How are they coached to not have a letdown and be, don't go on the road and slip up, right? Turnovers could be
Sure.
They're a great equalizer, right? Not just a point spread. So, but to Chris's point, Bama showed last week their depth. They showed their skill and their talent. So maybe if you're interested in Vandy, maybe it's a first half. Well, every now and then we look at you look at the first half.
Alabama, even under Saban, would have some games where they would sleepwalk the first half and then just beat the hell out of you in the second half.
So it's just a letdown, potential letdowns. But if not, listen, then they are the champion contender that they've shown.
That team, I never thought the coaching was a question like some people thought. I never bought that. Kalen DeBoer's won at every single level, every single place he's ever been. It is a question, honestly, and it's weird to say, was the talent as good as we've been accustomed to of Alabama in recent years? And so far through the first months, it's a resounding hell yeah.
Well, don't forget, they wrote a lot of guys that hit the portal, right?
Sure, of course. Absolutely.
And he's following a legend. It's
hard to do.
That's a difficult task. Whether it's a look at players. Look at fighters. Look at Larry Holmes following Muhammad Ali as the heavyweight champion of the world. It's difficult to fill the spot either as a player, a fighter, a coach of a legend, because you're measured against everything. So great for him last week. If they would have lost that game, he'd have been crucified for for blowing that lead and not giving Georgia credit. But they didn't. They're in a great position, and I think they're going to remain in that position as long as they stay healthy.
Vinny, you and I are about the same age. Remember Gene Bartow replacing Johnny Wooden?
John Wooden at UCLA.
Impossible.
Right?
Impossible.
It's a no-win situation.
Let's go to Evanston next. Check one off for Indiana last week. Touchdown favorite at home. Covered relatively easily when it was all said and done against Maryland. Now let's check another box here. almost a 2-touchdown favorite on the road in conference play now at the soccer lacrosse fields at Evanston, right on Lake Michigan. Look, Indiana's passed every test with flying colors so far, and now here they are. I think deservedly so. Togglers, Vinny would say, 14, 13.5, 14, 13.5. They deserve to be this big of a favorite. It's just a matter of already able to cover a number this big in conference play against, unfortunately, a family that are big Northwestern fans. The worst team in the Big Ten at the moment other than Purdue.
Our good friend, the QC, quant coach, he's going to this game. He's been telling me he's really looking forward to being in that stadium, which I think would be really cool.
It's fun. It's a fun-looking place, Chris.
Yeah, and I probably got this wrong, but I think his wife was a cheerleader at Northwestern.
Okay.
So he has a little bit of a bias there. But I made this number a little lower. I think Northwestern going to probably try to keep this score down. I think Indiana. I hope Damashek isn't listening. I think that Indiana probably shooting a little higher than actually as good as they are, and they've been very good. No, I mean I made the number 12. It's not like I made it pick 'em or anything, but I think this number is just a little bit high. I think if you got plus 14, that's not a bad way to go. If you got Northwestern,
Chrissy's spot on. If you're looking for the dog here, a pregame bet, then it's to try to grab the 14, and it's gone back and forth a couple of times. So be patient, and as bettors, you've got to learn to be patient and follow that line movement. And have this. I'm holding up my my phone. Have your apps. Have them ready.
That's always the case, isn't it? I mean, this is
a day and age you can.
This is a very important device in this day and age.
Chrissy and I remember the we made some references earlier talking about the last game about coaches and players. There was a time when you had to have a lot of speed, not only as an athlete but as a bettor to get from one place to another.
Let's go to Tempe next. Arizona State off a bye, a tough loss, a touchdown and a 2-point conversion loss in Lubbock 2 weeks ago. They take on the limping in Kansas Jayhawks, who are losers of 4 in a row. Another game where they had a lead in the fourth quarter and end up losing by 2 scores to TCU last week. 2.5, 51. Arizona State favored at home in this one, Chris.
I made it number 2, so
no quibble with the number.
No quibble with the number. I like Leipold. I just think he's such a terrific coach, and he's kind of faced some hard times right here. But I don't know. It's hard to say I like him in this spot, and they made the number like right there. But I'm probably going to be rooting for Kansas in this one. Just no other reason than I kind of like the school. I've been on the campus. I've been on Arizona State too, but I want Kansas to be a really good team because I think they could be. I don't know if they could be as good as their basketball team, but I think they could make a lot of noise in this Big 12 and stay up there year after year. And so I'm kind of rooting for them in this spot.
Here's a current lesson for our side of the counter. How important coordinators are to teams. I've talked about how we had to learn expensive lessons over the years about offensive lines and paying attention to those injuries or retirements or trades or whatever the case may be. Coordinators, we're finding, mean a great deal to players, not just coaches, staff. I mean, look at this Kansas team, Jeff. Not the same offensively, particularly under center, since the OC has departed. And so we've got to make those adjustments. Professional bettors are out there following that, and it's a key point. And there's a lot of transition, a lot of different styles, and players, particularly in college, young players become very close to coaches, not just head coaches, but their coordinators, because they're with them constantly. So that's an important factor to keep track of.
Well, this is a game that at the beginning of the year I thought was going to be trap spot for Kansas. It's the other way around.
Yeah.
Trap spot for Arizona State at this point. All right, let's go to where College Game Day is. Berkeley, California.
Who didn't know that?
For the first time
Miami
ever, Conference game, Miami at Cal. Oh boy, we realize. You know what? The crazy person in me just loves that this is a conference matchup now. So 10.5 on this game now, Chris. Down from 12.5. Total 54. Justin Wilcox has had success up against Mario Cristobal in the past when he was at Oregon. Always had problems scoring against Cal's defense, and here you go. I mean, pressure's all in Miami in this game. You got to find a way to win this game if you're the Canes.
Yeah, I mean, this is another game on first glance. I made the number higher, but then the more I researched it, I probably thought like about 13 was the right number. You know, maybe a little higher than what it is right now. Anyway, I have a good friend of mine from Northern Nevada. She says she's going to go to the game. She just always wanted to go to a game day. So, well, it's going to be 6 o'clock in the morning out there when you get there. So I don't know. I'm not sure if she's going to go or not. I have a feeling she might bail. But, I still like the favorite a little bit here in this spot. But I did hear Cal sold out this game. And that's, it's
a big deal.
That's really big for a school that's not known really. They've put some good players out in the pros for sure, but it's not always been the greatest college team or the greatest college atmosphere for football. But this one they really they've turned it up a notch. And even though I like the number a little bit higher, I kind of hope I go into this game needing Cal because I wouldn't mind rooting for him in this spot.
Game day does ramp up tailgating, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay. There?
Yeah.
Sure.
How about that?
A lot of time to tailgate after the game. They only have 10.5 hours before the game.
Yeah, let me tell you, they do a great job. To our friends there. Can't wait to see them here sometime. There it is. I'm putting it out there.
Hey, if UNLV was on Saturday, it might have come here this week, Vinny.
You know what? Everybody loves to come to Vegas.
So.
And but no, this is a game here that. We're seeing money on the home dog. Not really a surprise. A steady stream here. What's the threshold? We'll call it to where we get some favorite money. Probably 10, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe even a tick under. I'm not sure. But not a real surprise that money's come in on the home dog here.
Let's keep it in the Bay. We'll go to Palo Alto. Stanford welcomes Virginia Tech. As Jeff Motley told me yesterday, this is only the second time Virginia Tech has ever played in California. That's it.
Oh.
I played in one bowl game in San Francisco in the early 2000s, and that's it.
Wow.
Motley would know.
Yeah.
Very good.
Vatek's 8 in this one against Stanford with a total of 49.5, Chris.
Well, I made a number 6, so I kind of favor the dog a little bit. The Stanford's another team better than I thought they would be. Now, they're not great shakes at all. But I think they have a little bit of talent. We know they play smart. But Virginia Tech, that's a team that's been a little bit disappointing throughout the year. Lost that first game as double-digit favorites at Vanderbilt. And they've shown glimpses ever since then of being what we thought they would be, but not quite yet. But, Jeff, the sick bird that you are, there's another conference game that you got to
love it.
Love it.
Love it, yes. Blacksburg and Palo Alto, very similar cities there. Chris.
Sister cities.
Yeah.
Here's another game. This is something, too, from our side of the counter, I feel like I'm having one of my lectures here, one of my classes here. We don't always need favorites. Underdogs. Sometimes we need favorites.
Yeah.
There's a couple of games that we're just talking about that, we need that balance. You need a balance of favorites as well as underdogs when you're booking. And as a bettor, there's times you need to. You will not make money betting on favorites all the time.
Vinny, let's show our age here. Remember the old days? Virginia Tech was called VPI, Virginia Polytechnical, or Virginia Poly.
Yeah. Sure.
Jeff,
I believe you. I believe you.
Oh, you better believe us.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling your dad might not have been bored yet.
Not a clue in the world on my end.
It could be a great
Virginia Poly.
Might be a grandpa reference.
Yeah. Let's go to Tucson. This is a late one. A 9:00 local time start.
That's fine with us.
In Tucson. 7 in this one, Chris. You guys are marking high on this game. Texas Tech. Texas Tech has actually played pretty well.
Yeah.
Arizona, of course, coming off the big win in Salt Lake a week ago against Utah.
Well, I like the favorite in this game. I think this number's still a little bit cheap. Texas Tech started out bad, and I didn't think much of Texas Tech coming into this year. They've been a little bit better than I thought. But I like Arizona in this spot. I think this is, those 9 o'clock local starts. Probably has no bearing on the game at all. But I do like Arizona. I think this is a good spot for them. And I'd like them to cover this number. I think it's a little bit softer than it should have been. But by the way, we're getting a very good two-way action on this game.
A couple of points to the over. I think we'll continue to see over money as well in this one.
Let's go to Fayetteville. Arkansas welcomes Tennessee. Undefeated Vols did not play last week after beating Oklahoma 2 weeks ago. Arkansas lost a tight game against A&M a week ago in Arlington. Guys, the total, Tennessee total getting bet down from 60 to 57. At 13.5 hasn't moved the whole week with the Vols favored on the road in Fayetteville.
I think this is a hell of a game, and we got very little business on it. I mean, I guess you could say two-way, but it's not much two-way. And to me, this is one of the marquee games of the week, and it's on ABC in prime time. And I'm assuming Herb Street's going to be there with Fowler. I don't know. I thought this game would get a lot more action. I have no beef with the number. Made it a little bit higher. I made it 15. Because I think Tennessee, if they get the lead, they'll probably stretch it out pretty good. But no guarantee that that's going to happen. But I hope we get a lot more business come post time tomorrow.
I think we will, Chris. I think to your point, I mean, it's sitting there pretty much two-way. A little tricky spot here for Tennessee, too, right? They can't overlook this Arkansas team at home. Tough out.
Tennessee gets Florida next week. And then they get Alabama the week after that. Obviously, Tennessee has just had no success beating Florida over the years. But if you can't beat them this year, when are you ever beating them if you're the Vols? All right, let's go quickly on this one. Baylor almost pulled off a monster comeback at home last week against BYU. Just too big of a hole to come back from. They go on the road to Iowa State. Iowa State's been as good as anyone in this league. 12-point favorites at the moment with a 44.5 total on this game.
Money on the dog in this one, but I tell you, I made this number exactly what I opened at 13.5. So they're betting me the dog in this one, and like Vinny said, well, we don't always need dogs. I think we're going to need a favorite in this game, but Vinny, I'm okay with that. I made it 13. I'm not a huge number difference, but Jeff, like you said, this team's playing some pretty good football.
Great defensive team for sure.
But dog and under, right? We're seeing under money as well.
Yeah.
So
not much of a shock. Baylor team I still don't think is any good. I'm just throwing that out there. Oklahoma State hosting West Virginia. Boy, Oklahoma State, talk about being disappointing. The last 2 weeks have just been a mess.
Sure.
Even though they only lose by 3 to Utah, that was a 3-score game before Utah stopped playing. And then last week, early on, it looked like Oklahoma State actually was the better side for a good chunk of the first half. And then, boom, just absolute crushing by K-State the last about 40 minutes or so of that game, en route to a 42-20 win. West Virginia, of course, got the big win against Kansas that they really needed after the sluggish 1-2 start for them, off a bye, down to 3 in this game from 4.5, Chris, with Oak State at home favored.
Well, there's something wrong with Oak State, and
they're not that good.
Yeah, well, and I think there's some injuries too, because I watched that first half. If you remember, I had Oak State last week against K-State. And boy, I was feeling pretty good the first 20 minutes or so of the game. Not so good after that. So I think there's some depth problems with Oak State, which usually means injuries. I don't have a strong opinion in this game at all. But West Virginia, again, they started out a little disappointed in me. I thought they'd really play well against Penn State, and they didn't. So I've been kind of waiting for them to come around. Looked like maybe they have come around a little bit. And Oak State right now on such a downward trend, it'd be very hard for me to bet on Oak State here.
Oak State started slow last year, then made a great run. They started really pretty strong, much stronger this year than they did a year ago. But now, haven't been the same since that Utah game, which really was, they were dominated in that game, even though they tried to, they made it close.
Let's go to College Station, early game. Missouri on the road at A&M. Tigers off a bye. Aggies off of a win against Arkansas a week ago. Texas A&M is sitting there with only one loss, and it doesn't feel like they've played well, in all honesty, in any of these games.
But they've recovered from the first season. The
4 straight
wins
after losing to Notre Dame
at home.
2.5-point favorites in this game with a total of 48.5 for this one in the SEC. Of course, before Texas and Oklahoma. These were the two newbies in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, to me?
Yeah. No, what do you got here, Chris?
Not much, but we have been bet on A&M here. Pretty good in this game.
Yeah.
What did I make it? I think I made it 1 A&M. So once again, not a big number difference, but the money has shown pretty strongly, really, on A&M. Not ready to go to 3 yet, but you know, money wise, I probably could make a pretty good excuse to do that, but I don't want to do that yet right now. I think this should be a good game. But one of the things we said early on in the year is about Mike Elko, and he ran into a tough Notre Dame team week 1. But we thought that his team would improve as the season goes on because he is that good of a coach. And I think we are starting to see that a little bit. But I have a lot of respect for your alma mater, Jeff. You know, Missouri. I mean, that program's come a long way in the last 3-4 years, and I think this should be a pretty good game.
Good game to get us started tomorrow morning. 9 o'clock, 9 Pacific time. To Chris's point, I think they're waiting for 3. Anybody looking to bet Missouri? That's what bettors are waiting for. Yeah, I know you are.
I like them outright. So I think what you said. I thought that if A&M was favored, it should have been 1. I thought that was about right. I just think Mizzou's the better football team, and they just haven't played well in the first month. It happens. If not, and again for Missouri's college football playoff chances, kind of got to get this game because their schedule by SEC standards is pretty weak. And after what we saw in Tuscaloosa last week, there is no way they're going to Tuscaloosa and upsetting Alabama in 4 weeks.
No, and the thing is, there's going to be a glut around. Just you got Bama. And then Georgia, and there's kind of a glut.
Texas, too.
Oh, God, I forgot about Texas. Yeah. I keep thinking I can't remember Texas in the SEC. Yeah, so it's 3. Now, after that.
Yeah, Ole Miss, Tennessee, there's a bunch of LSU. There's about 7 teams all capable of making a playoff.
Yeah.
Let's go to Lincoln real quick. Huskers 7 against Rutgers. Rutgers very fortunate to get out with a win last week against the Huskies on a Friday night. Nebraska really screwed around for a half and then dominated Purdue in the second half. I think this number actually is a little bit light, in all honesty.
Really?
You know what? I think this is a horrible spot for Rutgers. They were fortunate to win. You take Monangai out of the game, Nebraska should be able to handle their business at home.
Well, I made the number 6, and we're getting good 2-way action on this game. A little bit on Rutgers, but be wary of that popular dog. And right now, they are the popular dog. You know, I like Shiano. I think this guy's going to do well.
Great college coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's going to do well there. He seems to have the ear and the eyesight on a lot of recruits in that area, and I think they're going to continue to do well. But, I'm not sure about this spot, but I did make the number a little bit lower.
39.5 for the total. I suspect this will come up, I think.
Yeah, let's go with Minnesota hosting USC real quick. The Gophers, 8-point dogs in this game. Again, almost pulled off a prolific comeback against Michigan. Refs did not help them out in that game. They even changed the rule on who's assigned, which official's assignment to what on onside kicks in the Big Ten because of it. Weird spot for USC, right? They really did not play well last week. End up covering all numbers against Wisconsin anyway with a big second half. But again, you get some weird road trips here for the Trojans moving forward in this conference.
No huge play, a little bit of money on the dog. I always, I tend to root for PJ Fleck because I think he's one of those guys. I think I discovered him fairly early when he was at Western Michigan. Had a lot of success betting on him because he really was the class of that conference. Since he's gone to Minnesota, it's not turned out great. I guess it's not turned out horrible either, but kind of like the dog a little bit in this spot, but really nothing. If I was out there betting, I would not be playing this one.
With these conference realignments, you've got to really watch scheduling because of travel, right? I mean, the travel is much more involved now. Our teams going, crisscrossing the country twice within 3 weeks or whatever, things like that. So, I mean, or from the West Coast to the Midwest, how far, what kind, how's weather impacting things and everything. So, it's not just about the weather in the host city, but what's happening in other areas that could impact travel. So something else to keep an eye on.
Well, no, these last few games are all Big Ten. It's very weird that a rematch of the national championship game from a year ago has basically zero buzz But Michigan and Washington, to me, has zero buzz. The bettors have liked Michigan this week, Chris. Even though this is one of those classic spots where you have the unranked home favorite who usually, historically speaking, over the last 15 years, hitting at about a 62% clip in this sort of spot with Washington favored by 1.5 at home against Michigan.
Yeah, we can't bet on any of those games, though. This is a whole new game.
Right.
I like Michigan in this game. I really think they have the wrong favorite. Washington, again, I have a kid that lives in Seattle, so I kind of root for Washington a little bit. But I think right now Michigan is the better team. I think they should have been a slight favorite in this game. And I'm hoping to go into this game needing Michigan. Right now I need Washington, though, and I'm going to see what I could do to change that by tomorrow night.
Well, we'll see. Michigan, a couple of big wins at home in the last couple of weeks, right? Being able to run the football, and they should be able to run the football here. But to Chris's point, we're definitely gonna need Washington here. This game may continue to come down. You may see Pick'em on this game by the time kickoff comes.
Going to Columbus real quick. Iowa takes on the Buckeyes from 21 to 18.5 in this game. Total. Yes, Iowa total going up as well from 44.5 to 46. Look, I know Ohio State's coming off a really good performance against Michigan State, and maybe bettors with Oregon looming, playing the look-ahead angle. But, boy, I'm just not sure how Iowa's going to score in this game, as seems to be the case against these high-end teams, Chris.
I made the number higher, but, as I said, I was in that seminar with at Bet Bash. I think Iowa is one of my hardest teams to handicap. Now, not so much when they're in a 2-point favorite or 2-point dog, but these are the kind of games I find very hard to handicap because they probably should lose by 30 to Ohio State. But can they control the tempo in this game, which they tend to do an awful lot? And if so, they'll cover. But I need Ohio State in this game, and I'm okay with that. I think Ohio State should be a bigger favorite.
Might be a closer first half than second half, just like we saw last week.
One last one on the college front. I wish we had a better game for you. UCLA, 28.5-point underdogs in Happy Valley against Penn State. Wasn't the prettiest last Saturday night against Illinois, but you know what? Penn State's defense really played a heck of a game, and quite frankly, should have won by a lot more than 14 if you just went box score diving in that one. UCLA, we've said it, they're just not any good. It's a really tough draw, and this is also a noon Eastern kickoff. It makes it even more difficult for UCLA.
What did you say about assistant coaches, Vinny?
They're impactful.
Yeah, they are impactful, and Penn State, I think, really got a good scoop. What's the guy's name? He came from Kansas. He has a kind of an odd name.
Colton Ecke.
Yeah, he's done a pretty good job. Now, not last week, but overall, I think he's really improved this Penn State offense. I made the number 28, though. Where am I going with that? It's right on the number.
UCLA is already a difficult in a difficult situation, but now they got player injuries. The game last week for Penn State, that was a tough spot for Illinois too, though. Give them credit. I mean, they won that big game against Nebraska the week before, and then they go to Happy Valley. So, but full marks to Penn State, who definitely are in a nice position where they're playing and keeping things rolling. This would be a real disappointment to that program with the expanded playoff if they fail to make it, especially considering I think there's going to be 4 teams out of the
we said it at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
No program in college football, I think, benefited more than Penn State with this new format because it's usually just can't beat the high-end teams and you smack the teams you're better than. And so far this year, it sure looks like that is going to be the case yet again for Penn State. All right, we'll take a quick break. Jimmy Vacarro is here. He'll join us when we get back. Sports by the Book, Football Frenzy.
Get ready to laugh with Punchlines with Frank Nicotero. Join Frank, Ryan McCormick, and their team of featured guests for your daily dose of comedy.
The deli has mayo. Just a little here.
What Cowboys fans think it's good to be their year.
Sports.
I'm a Steelers fan. The Steelers are
sorry to hear that.
Do I hate Tom Brady? Yes. Do I respect Tom Brady? No.
And the funniest social media posts.
People want to show off their food. Boom. Wiener on a guy's shoulder. Because you're like, oh, it's Libby. Oh. She looks like my Italian aunt.
It's your one-stop spot for great laughs and a good time. Find us on YouTube at Punchlines FN. Join the chat live weekdays at noon Pacific for the ultimate blend of jokes, sports, and viral fun.
Welcome back in Football Frenzy, Sports by the Book. I'm Jeff Parles. Jimmy's here.
Oh, you're in a good mood.
I am.
No, here's why you shouldn't be in a good mood.
Why not?
I heard you're the boss of this show,
Okay.
and you pushed me back to the last guest every day when I come in.
Okay, all right.
And the $500 you give me is not a big deal. And the
You
other
could be
thing
Matt
is,
Damon on the Jimmy Kimmel show.
Oh, hold on a second. I need the stamp that you have, Jimmy.
no chance.
Okay.
No chance.
Not gonna happen.
And let's have a little bit of fun. No,
Yeah.
whatever. But like quickly, I'm looking around and I see all the games have started, and obviously we're into the 5th week of the NFL. You know how fast it goes when nuts like us, this is our life, and so whatever. Maybe 2 more weeks, and the kids, they'll be halfway done with their season. I mean, it's incredible how fast this stuff goes. So whatever, kids, have a good time doing it. And like I said, just take it easy on me.
That's because we're getting younger, Jimmy.
What's that?
I said we're getting younger.
Getting numbered.
We're getting younger.
Younger.
No, I'm getting younger. I'll be 79 tomorrow.
Whoa. Okay.
I'll be 79.
Here,
So
we're
everybody in the
we're-
back
we're-
there,
we're
hold
Get
it.
talking to your
Fix that
mic
real
there.
quick.
There
There
you
we go.
Okay.
Jerry, get him some M&Ms for his birthday. See what you can do. No.
M&M's? No, I'll get them next week.
Okay.
I got to get a haircut from Johnny or something. My hair's going on. So anyway, listen, it's been good so far. It's been a little crazy, and I enjoy it when you're in the middle of the season. And obviously, it's part of what we've done for so long that we could actually do the 12 or 14 weeks, whatever, and start over. It wouldn't have mattered one bit. And you know what? You would have said okay. You would have said okay.
Sure.
I don't know about him, but I'd have said okay too.
We kind of start all over because then we get into the NFL playoffs. And, this year, too, we're going to have college playoffs. So.
And quickly with the NFL, I mean, if you just look at the numbers on it, I mean, the games every week getting closer and closer. Like the parity is showing and showing and showing because it's right there. I mean, Kansas City's not scaring anybody, that's for sure. I mean, they're just whatever. And I mean, if you can tell me what you take out of last night's game, you're a genius. I mean, how about if you had that side like on a money line, whatever, and just like, what am I doing here? Then they crash through the window and start running up to Las Vegas Boulevard and holding their ticket up in the air. Like,
I had Tampa last night, which was well, you know what? The baseball result definitely
It softened it a little bit?
Definitely softened the blow.
I'm glad you had a uniform change, too.
No, trust me. I have to be professional on this show.
Oh,
Chris.
okay.
You know that.
Not Frank's show, though.
But Jimmy, I do want to ask you real quick because we've had this. We've talked about just the growth of the college game through the years.
Sure.
And and the game last Saturday night, where you guys are booking it like an NFL, a big time NFL game, and not only were you booking it like that, it delivered like a big time NFL game.
Well, what we're getting out of the NFL, and I'm sure, the college, these guys could chime in too. It's just like it used to be a time where you were laying 3-1 as far as like the action it was on the NFL to the action it was on the college. Now, I tell you what, if you really counted everything down, college might be squeaking out a little plus higher because, I mean, and it does do this for its own sake too. We'll start at 9 o'clock in the morning tomorrow with the college, and 8 o'clock at night, we'll still be taking bets on it.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going and growing and growing. So I would say right now it's pick 'em. And remember, 1980, 81, 82, I mean, you might have, booked 35 games with the college? Maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now there's 150 games sometimes on this schedule?
You know who I blame for that? Our good friend Richie Baccelleri. He kept pushing the schedule.
Bachelor.
Well, remember there was the schedule war, right? Between who was which games were going to be on the board. It's good for business.
It is good. Although there's sometimes
but
like when I see the Kennesaw State final tonight, I might not be that happy with Mr. Bachelari.
I'll tell you one thing that made me think about twice about it. I was at the MGM at the time, and it was obviously coming down to the end of the year, then coming up to March Madness. It was just like a little bit of whatever. The next year, the crowd was bigger and bigger. That's when I went to marketing. I said, I don't know how to do this. It's on your lap, person, but you got to start pushing the college, with the basketball and the March Madness. They just started 1 year. Within 2 years, they had like 3,000 people that called in early to get their seats so they could come. Only because, first of all, it was exciting. Second of all, you bet a few dollars on the game. But things have changed, gentlemen. Things have changed.
We had a guy named Danny Ainge went cross.
It goes
coast to coast against Notre Dame to
it sure was
to win the game. Yeah, good stuff.
Jimmy, are you a fan of the games in London for the NFL?
Stupid.
No? Stupid. Too early, too,
yeah,
right?
It is. I mean, we get some people there, right, Chris? Some people there.
Yeah, we'll get started early that day.
Yeah, but it's still, what does it really serve? I don't think I understand. I know one thing. If I'm like one of the good players on the team going over there, say, why the hell am I flying to London, playing a game, flying back? And how about if you do that and you lose? I mean, it's really, really a pissed off.
Well, I'll tell you why.
situation.
You look around that stadium and see how many jerseys you see.
Yeah.
And that's why they're doing
Yeah,
it.
you're right.
Marketing.
Full boat always in those games as well.
And help me out. Are they going to another country to play a couple of these games?
So we have 3 in London the next 3 weeks.
Next 3 in London.
Next 3 weeks are in London.
Get here early, Jimmy. 6:30.
Yeah, 6:30 the next 3 weeks.
AM.
If we can get Michael's jet, we'll go.
And then there's the one this year in Munich where they sent the Panthers and the Giants over there for that game.
Correct.
So
Are you serious?
we apologize, Germany, for sending our worst over there. Yes, that is the Germany game.
There's only one game they're missing. You ready?
Go for it.
Trafford versus Pitcairn.
There we go. Yes.
But they'll have that on via satellite, I'm sure.
And listen, you can get your meal at Ann's Diner. That's how good it was. French fries and gravy. I think it was 75 cents.
Yeah, I like going up to Route 22 at Carl's.
Wow, there
diner.
you go. I mean, anybody out there want to come? Listen, Pittsburgh plays here in a couple weeks, right?
I know.
We got to do something for this knucklehead.
No,
We'll get on the plane and fly out here.
Well, we got a few guys lined up, particularly for Frank's shows that week. I think right now we got about 3 guys lined up to come on Frank's show. Yeah.
That's good. Wow, did you ever think way back when, I'm going to the Super Bowl. Where's it at? Whatever, Las Vegas. What are you talking about, Las Vegas? But here we are, and that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, we're going to have the Super Bowl here.
I thought you were going to say Super Bowl in Trafford there for a second.
Super Bowl in Trafford. I'll say it now.
What's the Churchill, the Wolf Den or something like that? They hold about 12,000.
He went to the big school. Tell him about Chalfont Borough, you and your big shot.
Well, it was part of Churchill area. So, we don't brag about being from Chalfont too much.
How about you, Slick? Where did you go to high school?
I went to Northern Highlands High School in Allendale, New Jersey. So I don't know if you know that one.
Did you play football?
I did not actually.
Were you any good at basketball?
I was good for a suburban unathletic white kid. Yes.
The 3-pointer?
At times.
Okay.
At times.
Can I leave?
You can do whatever you want,
See you
Jimmy.
later.
Jimmy Vacarro.
And that
everyone
is the same.
and the Jimmy exit across stage as well. Always love
Why
it.
change now, Jeff?
Never.
Give my 500 to Chris.
I got it. Sounds good.
We'll
Sounds
put it
good.
on,
I just have to get a rubber band for the cash there, Jimmy. All right, let's go to the NFL this week, fellas. London. There you go.
London.
Early. So
It's actually a good game.
Yes. In theory, it is a good game with the Jets and the Vikings going over there. Vikings are 4-0. No one expected that. No. Jets are 2-2 off of that horrible loss last week to Denver. Chris, I will bring this up, though. Remember 2 weeks ago we talked about if Saquon Barkley catches the ball for Philadelphia, that line's very different. Mm-hmm. If Greg Zuerlein makes that kick and the Jets win 12-10, even with how ugly it was, this was 2.5 Jets at books that offered it on the look ahead. Now it's 2.5 like a blanket on Minnesota. Again, I'm not saying Minnesota won't win the game. I'm not saying they won't cover. I'm not as strong on the Jets as I was in that day with Philadelphia. But 5 points feels like a lot from what it would have been last Sunday.
Well, I got it right down here. I like the Jets in this game. I think this is, forget the score and the number and all. The whole narrative would have been different coming out of the Jets this week had they made that field goal. Listen, I also know what I see.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought the Vikings should be about a 1-point favorite in this game. The Jets' offense did look bad. Rodgers looked bad. And the Vikings look great. I mean, you can't take anything away from them.
Amazing again.
Yeah, they look terrific. But I still think, that was a way too big of an over-adjustment. And, Jeff, in all honesty, that's why the bookmakers make a lot of money. Usually in the NFL, they go way too much by what they saw last week. And I think this is, Exhibit A right now. And, I personally, I like the Jets in this game. I think this is a good rebound spot for them. They're getting out of New York. They're getting out of the country. They're getting out of the hemisphere. I think this is a time where maybe they can make a little bounce back. And listen, the Vikings are 4-0. You know how hard it is to go 5-0 in this league?
It's pretty damn hard, Chris.
It's damn hard. And I don't think they're going to do it. And I like the Jets in this spot. I think it's a good place for them.
Yeah, it's definitely a pro spot for the Jets. But let's remember this: if this game was in Minnesota, they'd be 3.5, maybe even 4. Think about that. If the Vikings, yeah. I mean, this is
Easily.
not a home.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about the Jets' defense, which is solid. This Vikings defense has been outstanding. I mean, that's really, when you think about it, I think that's a bigger reason that they're undefeated than their offense. I mean, Sam Darnold, listen, I give him full marks, but this is a good one. I'm glad. I don't mind these games because I know they start early, but I think here too, Chris, the benefit is with a 24-hour book. It's terrific. It may not be a big favorite for a lot of our colleagues up and down the boulevard, but having a 24-hour book, you know what? It's great.
Well, I don't mind it for 2 reasons. The 24-hour book.
Yeah.
And I don't have to be here until later. I got a crew that takes care of it.
That's good.
Very good, Chris.
There you go.
Next up, Carolina goes to Chicago. Bears are 2-2. It doesn't feel like they're 2-2, but here they are, 500. Got a nice win against the Rams last week at home. Held them off when it was all said and done. And guys, so far in this game, you opened 4, got bet down to 3.5, back to 4. That total has been what's been hit more. 43 open, down as low as 40. Now back to 41 on this game.
I like the favorite a little bit here. I think that right now, Andy Dalton gave him a little bit of a boost when he came in right away. Like we said, a 7-point power rating differential from the starting quarterback to the backup quarterback. I don't think I've ever seen that in my life. But I think that the magic's kind of off that. What's the bloom is off the rose, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's still Carolina, and they're terrible. They're a bad team. Now, the Bears are no great shakes either. But coming home, I think it's a good spot maybe for Caleb Williams to have a pretty good outing. He's certainly been disappointing so far. But, I mean, Jaden Daniels, he's, that's an aberration. All these young quarterbacks are going to struggle and have their share of struggles during the course of the year. But I think it's a good spot for Caleb to maybe get his feet under him a little bit and have a pretty decent game. I like the Bears in this spot.
I think that's the perception out there, too. We're going to need Carolina. That's not a surprise. We pretty much need them every week, although they did bet them against the Raiders when they were here.
Mm-hmm.
If the Bears are going to be serious contenders, and even though this is not a division game, this is a game they have to have. And I think that's the mindset of the bettors.
It is a very important game for the Bears for one reason and one reason only, and you just said it, Vinny. If you're going to stay alive in that division, which no one expected Minnesota to be a real threat, they're clearly a real threat. Detroit, 3-1, quite frankly, should be 4-0 with the game they lost to Tampa.
Goff's finally playing some decent football.
Completing every one of your passes good, Chris?
I couldn't do that with no defense. Just throwing it in our backyard.
Yeah, I mean, Detroit's offense was awesome, and the Packers will figure it out. I'm really not worried about them. With Jordan Love will be fine. The Packers will still be fine. But if you're Chicago, if you're going to stay in this, you got to get these games against weaker competition, and this is one of them against the Panthers. All right, let's go to the AFC North. Boy, look at Baltimore. Wow, what a performance on Sunday night. Just decimating Buffalo from the get-go in that game. Derrick Henry looks spry and young, which is a scary, scary thing for the NFL. If that's what Derrick Henry's going to be, and that's 2 weeks in a row he's looked young and spry after he decimated Dallas the week before. Bengals finally off the schneid. They get their first win with a win in Carolina last week. Baltimore 2.5 on the road. Again, the Bengals dealing with a collection of defensive injuries as they have been basically for the better portion of a month now, Chris.
Boy, Derrick Henry, I heard some of the guys comparing him to Eric Dickerson. And again, Jeff, that's probably a little bit before your time.
I've seen enough highlights of him.
Okay, Eric Dickerson was one hell of a running back.
Yeah.
Big, strong, fast. There's not that many great big running backs. Most of them are more like Jerome Bettis, a little bit squat where you can fit through those holes a little bit easier. But boy, Henry's just that's a man and a half, I got to tell you. That being said, I kind of like the Bengals here. Again, I don't think teams are as good or as bad as they looked the last week. The Ravens look like easily could be the best team in the NFL. And not that they're not, but this number has just kind of creeped up a little bit. And, we're talking about must games. We're in week 5. We're talking about must games, but, that's the NFL right now. There's a big conglomeration around the middle. It's almost like the SEC. You've got your top couple of teams, but after that, there's a bunch of teams vying for any type. I don't even want to say supremacy, but positioning for the playoffs. I think it's a huge game for Cincinnati. There's still so much I do not like about this team, starting with ownership. But I think this is a bit of an overcorrection because of last year. And listen, guys, this is the NFL. Crazy stuff happens all the time. I like the Bengals a little bit in this spot.
They haven't been able to, outside of last week, really control the line of scrimmage in their losses. And this is an enormous task with the way the Ravens are running the ball. So that's what it's going to come down to. The way the Ravens, can dominate up front with that running game.
I always look for an angle to bet on Joe Burrow as an underdog. Always. Yeah. Especially at home. The big question mark with Cincinnati, again, Trey Hendrickson did practice today, which is big because he's their best defensive player. He went down with an injury last week. They're still without likely B.J. Hill yet again. That defense is slim. But if they can get enough defensively, I'm with you, Chris. This would be a lean to the Bengals. You go 1-4 with Baltimore. Forget it. You lost to Baltimore. That's a game in the standings that isn't really there because of the division race. It's
worth 2 games.
It's
at least a game and a half.
It's an uphill battle for Cincinnati. It's part of the reason last night where I thought if Tampa won last night, they were just completely in the driver's seat in the NFC South. It would have been 4-1. Atlanta would have been 2-3. They would have got the home game with Atlanta later this month. But of course, Kirk Cousins throws for over 500 yards last night, as we all expected going into that game.
That's funny. I'm watching that game, and I said, I'm not a huge Cousins fan, but he's tough. He's not quite Matthew Stafford. He's kind of like along those lines. Stafford. I'm more impressed with Stafford this year than I've probably ever been. He's really carried this team on his back. Now, I'm not carrying him all that far, but this kid, he's a veteran. But I would say the same about Cousins. These veteran quarterbacks that still haven't been hurt, anything like that. They could carry your team, and they're tough to knock out. And that's something. Again, I'm getting a little bit off track here, but I think that's kind of stuff that happens in the NFL.
Another big one in the AFC up next. Stephon Diggs with a chance at revenge against his former team. The Texans and the Bills game in Houston. This is the middle of this big 3-game road trip we talked about with Buffalo starting last week in Baltimore, Houston this weekend, and Monday night in New York against the Jets to wrap up a pretty massive 3-game road trip for the Bills, who looked as good as anyone through the first 3 weeks. Guys, you guys are market low in the game right now because it went to Houston 1 everywhere earlier in the day. And quite frankly, even with no Ed Oliver for Buffalo. Of course, Von Miller suspended for violating the personal conduct policy as well. 4 games. He's out. Khalil Shakir's also out for Buffalo, but I have not been impressed with Houston at all through the first month. Sure, they're 3-1. They handled the games they were supposed to, but quite frankly, they should have lost last week to Jacksonville. Doug Peterson calls a real play at the goal line. They're down 2 scores late in the game. Good luck at that point. And I think if you're getting a price and the way the market's going, you might get a price on Buffalo at some point. That would be the only way I'd look to play this game right now with Buffalo on the road here.
Well, I'm with you. I made this number 3.5 Buffalo.
Oh, hello.
Well, again, are teams as bad as they looked last week or as good as they looked last week? And Buffalo looked bad last week. Let's put it that way.
The week before, they looked like the best team that's ever played football.
They look like the best team in the NFL. And, Jeff, I'm with you. I don't think Houston, we really expected a lot of things out of Houston. I don't know if I said it on your show. I might have. I think Houston may be a disappointment this year. They played the number 1 schedule as opposed to the number 4 schedule last year. And most teams that ascend, there's some exceptions, it's a bumpy ride to the top. Now, I like a lot about Houston. I like D'Amico Ryans. I like C.J. Stroud. I like a lot of things they've done with that team. But is that just a step ladder, 1, 2, 3, 4? It doesn't work that way usually. It's usually up 2, back 1, up 2, back 1. And I think they'll eventually be there as certainly one of the best teams in the NFL. I don't think they're quite there yet. And this year, they've been a little bit disappointing. And I think this number has gone way too far the other way. I think Buffalo's the right side in this game.
Yeah, I think, this is a matter of experience, too, and how teams rebound and recover. Chris's point about the schedule, difference from last year to this year is important. But, again, a difficult stretch for the Bills with 3. It's not often that teams have to go on a 3-game road trip. You might see 3 out of 4, but you pay attention to that. And we talk about travel in college. It's something to pay attention to here. But I think this is also a veteran quarterback with going against a second-year quarterback too, right? And the injuries now. Now, both teams have some injuries to deal with. I mean, every team's got injuries, right? But we did see where I think the injuries played a pretty important role in how close last week was, in the last couple of games, actually, for the Texans. The Bills have actually handled the injury situation or managed it more efficiently. Veterans, for sure, Vinny. And look, it's... Chris, your point is part of the reason a lot of people were concerned about Houston going into the year. You go from a last-place schedule with no expectations to first-place schedule with loads of expectations. Yeah. They're still 3-1. I'm not saying they're not going to win the AFC South because all those other teams have monster flaws, especially Tennessee. They might have been playing the wrong quarterback the first few weeks of the season, but it's just not the same. Of course, also Taylor Rapp not in this game with a concussion for Buffalo. We know Matt Milano hasn't been playing for months. We're not going to see him until December at the earliest. Get in the chat. Randall, thank you as always for hopping in. Birdie wished Jimmy a happy birthday. Jimmy, I don't know if you're watching still, but Birdie wants you to have a happy birthday. Agent 87's in there as always. Adam, best show of the week. Flo, not a fan of the Ravens. And then Chris reminding us all those injuries on the Buffalo side that we just touched on right there. All right. What has been an annual loss for the Indianapolis Colts is up next.
Even when they had Andrew Luck, I remember the one year we got flooded with Jacksonville money. And I'm looking, what the hell are they looking at? They blew up.
9 straight losses against Jacksonville when they're the road team. That includes 1 game in London as well. So 8 straight losses in Jacksonville. Obviously, that includes the absolute disaster a few years ago in the final week of the season when they were 16.5-point favorites and got blown out, needing the win for the playoff game in 2021. Look, Jacksonville's 0-4. They're desperate. They need a win to make sure this doesn't totally careen off the tracks. Indy's without Jonathan Taylor.
Right.
We know that.
I came across today.
Anthony Richardson, we're not certain yet. And quite frankly, Chris, if I'm betting Jacksonville into this game, I want to see Anthony Richardson on the field, not at 100%, if I'm a Jacksonville bettor in this game. Because Joe Flacco, even though Richardson can do more at this point of his career, this is the type of game, if Flacco plays, Indianapolis probably finds a way to upset Jacksonville even without Taylor, with Flacco just doing enough. I want to see Richardson out there if I'm betting Jacksonville in this game.
What do we have the game right now?
3.
Well, that'll stop you in your tracks a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. 2.5 was a different story earlier.
Yeah,
in the
2.5
week.
was a different story. 3 is going to make you think about it pretty good. Flacco, again, going back to veteran quarterbacks. And, he came in last year against Cleveland, played really well, and got him into the playoffs. Came in last week off the bench, probably not expecting to play during the course of the week, but he was prepared and played very, very well. I don't really have an opinion in this game. But you mentioned that one game, the last game of the year. Vinny, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Jacksonville beat the Colts the first game of the year a couple years back?
That was the 2020 season.
Knocked a whole bunch of people out of Survivor.
Jacksonville won
COVID.
week 1 and then lost
COVID
15
year.
straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one.
I don't know what the hell's going on with these two teams. I'm officially going to pass. Gun to my head, I guess I'd take the 3, but I'd bet that. I don't even know if I'd bet beer money on this one.
It may be a toggler, right? Take 3 and lay 2.5. So that's, I think, what we're going to see in this game.
I really want to bet Jacksonville in this game, but at 3, I just, like you said, stops you in.
You want to lay $1.50 on the money line?
Yeah, you know what happens when I do that, Vinny. Indianapolis finds Flacco throws a touchdown with 4 seconds left to win by 4.
I'm just saying, you have options.
Oh, I know.
We
I have
provide you with
I
options.
have plenty of options. I could also wait for the game to come back to 2.5.
You could go in game.
Well, always a good solution.
There
for
you
sure. All right, let's go to the AFC East. Boy, this is not what we expected from the Dolphins, right, guys?
Used to be a great game.
Arguably the worst offense in the NFL through a month. Have led for 0 seconds of live game time. Their only win came with triple zeros on the clock. That was their only lead as well in that game against Jacksonville. Tyler Huntley did not seem to help a floundering offense at all on Monday night. The defense is struggling as well. Other than that, how was the show, Mrs. Lincoln? Pick 'em right now on this game with New England, which really, in all honesty, Chris, tells you more about how bad the Patriots are in the power ratings more so than anything.
Yeah, nonetheless, I think they should be the favorite here. I like the Patriots. I almost put them on my list as one of my plays, but not so much a bet on the Patriots as it is a bet against Miami. Right now, what's the coach's name for Miami?
Mike McDaniel.
McDaniel. Does he have some Staley in him right now? I think that.
Oh boy.
I know that's a
The
terrible insult.
The Tua injuries.
Yeah,
impactful.
but you got to overcome injuries, Vinny.
No,
you said
you're
it before.
right.
Yeah. Every team has injuries, but Tua's it's obviously a big one. But they had nothing prepared behind them, and Tua was a guy that's had some injury issues. I like New England in this spot. And, Jacoby Brissett, not a great quarterback, but not bad either. But I like New England in this spot. I think they should be the favorite.
Yeah, I could see where, given the injuries, Patriots again, right? Just fundamentals, and let's run the football and play defense. I mean, the recipe that they showed on the opening game of the season in Cincinnati, and I think, this is a spot where they're probably going to try that. I think initially the money came in on Miami, Chris, right on Monday, and now we've seen it. Go towards the Patriots, but yeah, this is going to be a game where we're probably. I think we're going to need the Dolphins here.
Oh boy, Chris, I'm with you. I was a little surprised, even with how bad New England has looked. Other than they looked fine against Cincinnati week 1. I think that had more to do with the Bengals than it did with New England.
Yeah.
Week 2, they actually moved the ball against Seattle. Seattle still won that game in overtime, but boy, I'm surprised this isn't New England 2 even. Just with how bad Miami has looked on offense, and they look hopeless. And not only
Might
that,
get there.
I mean, and I said this, I forget if I made this point on this show last week or if I made it on a different version of Sports by the Book. The fact that Miami watched the Jets in the same division last year go into the year with inadequate backups to Aaron Rodgers and watch their season implode. And to do that with Tua Tagovailoa, where everyone knows the history of concussions is there.
Good point, Jeff.
And you go into this season with Skylar Thompson. By the way, they cut Tim Boyle today. So Tim Boyle's gone.
The Tim Boyle era is
all over.
Kaput.
All over in Miami. But you go into the year with Skylar, you cut Mike White, which, okay, sure. At least we know Mike White is capable of playing in an NFL game.
Not terrible,
Serviceable.
You go with Skylar Thompson, who limited but awful in his limited time in the league. Boyle, who might be the worst quarterback other than Ryan Lindley to appear in an NFL game in the last 20 years.
Ryan Lindley.
And now you're signing Tyler Huntley, who it might be the worst Pro Bowler ever, off the practice squad off of someone else's practice squad to learn the offense midseason. That's on your own arrogance. That's on your own arrogance that you can win with any quarterback. And quite frankly, in this league, you can't. Everyone knows that at this point. In Miami, in all honesty, you reap what you sowed so far this year. And if Tua doesn't come back, we're looking at a team that might be picking number 1 overall in the NFL draft this year. That's how bad it possibly can get. Oh, and that's what having the best receiver in the NFL who's useless with no quarterback in Tyreek Hill.
But even if he comes back, he's a hit away from getting knocked out again.
He's a hit away from not playing again this year. 100%. Vinny.
I mean, you can't say he's going to come back and not get sacked.
Yeah, he's going to get sacked.
Not forget about running the ball, right? Let's say he doesn't even run the ball anymore. He's going to get sacked. And it's risky. You're going to cringe every time the guy goes down.
Yeah, it's
unfortunate.
Again, with that injury history, it's unfathomable that Miami allowed this to happen. And you know what? You might go 3-14 because of it. Very well in play at this point for the Dolphins. If Tua does not come back. If Tua comes back, you're holding your breath every time he gets hit. For sure.
No question.
Well, how about have a little bit more of a positive spin? No, not Cleveland. How about Washington in this matchup where Jaden Daniels, look, Bill Barnwell, who is as respected as anyone, has Jaden Daniels as his first 4-week MVP in the league. Which, again, I still lean Josh Allen, but Jaden Daniels has been as good as anyone through the first month.
I was watching Get Up, and a lot of them agreed so far he's the best quarterback in the NFC right now.
Through the first month, it's not close.
I think he's the highest rating.
Him and God, what a statement I'm about to utter. Jaden Daniels and Sam Darnold have been the best quarterbacks in the NFC through the first month.
Get your Super Bowl tickets.
My goodness. I mean, what world are we living in? But, Chris, I will say this. For Cleveland, they're getting healthier on the offensive line, which is big. That was a big problem going into last week, and it showed up in that game here in Vegas. Conklin looks like he has a shot at playing. Wills likely will play this week on that left tackle side for Cleveland. Washington has been the best team in the NFL, arguably, the last 3 weeks. Has punted a grand total of 1 time in 3 games. With that said, the bettors have liked Cleveland in this game, taking this from 4-3. And quite frankly, Chris, I think the bettors are right in this spot.
Really?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Look, Deshaun Watson stinks. We know this, but this is a new role now for the Commanders, isn't it? They haven't been the only time they were favored was by 1.5 points against the Giants, and they needed a last-second field goal to cover that game.
I can't quite get there, Jeff. And I understand your theory, your philosophy, and your observation. I think is spot on. And traditionally in the NFL, I'd probably be with you because I'm more of a naysayer than your average guy. But I don't know. I mean, right now, and I'm trying to look up real quick what the defense has done for the
for Washington.
No, for Cleveland.
So Cleveland. Miles Garrett is banged up. Right. Look, it has been regression so far for Cleveland from a year ago.
Right. And Washington's defense has been good. It's been fine. It's been better than I think when people had anticipated. And that's what it's going to come down to in this game for me. I think which defense, it's not about the offenses. To me, it's going to be about the defense, the better defense, or the team that plays better defense in this game.
Yeah, Washington, 2 bad games defensively didn't matter against Cincinnati because they didn't punt. okay against the Giants. Yeah, I thought they played great last week against Arizona. Arizona, after the first quarter, Arizona did nothing in that game. It's so weird. And it's also one other thing, too. And I know I asked you this question on Monday, but I want to bring it to this show because it's a slightly different audience. But when you have a team that goes into the year as a bottom feeder, like Washington, and through a month, if we're not having any priors, they have to be looked at as a top 10 team through the first month. Yeah. They're kind of a complicated team to have in power ratings just because of what the priors were coming into this year.
Yeah, I mean, at what point do you kind of bail on the priors?
Right, exactly. That's the age-old question, isn't it?
And I know if we go to Rufus Peabody, one of the smartest guys out there, he would still be going with the priors,
right?
More than probably most of us. But you look at the priors for Cleveland. What are you going with, Deshaun Watson? I mean, he's been terrible, and I'm looking. Their defense actually has been fairly decent. We thought the defense was going to hold this team together. Cleveland, we're talking about.
Yeah.
They had a horrible game week 1, but since then they've actually been pretty good. I can't quite get there with you, Jeff, on the dog here. Although I understand, but I can't get there.
I don't like it as much at 3. The earlier week numbers, 4. Yeah, I thought that was
4.
I thought that was great. If you like Cleveland 3, it's like we said about the other game at 3. You got to think about it long and hard because, quite frankly, Washington by a field goal is the number that I think ends up popping out in this game. So, and also 4. I mean, geez, you lose 28-24, you get your money back. That's not a bad scenario, in all honesty.
To your point, Jeff, I mean, we're a month into this. We're in the 5th week now. Priors are not as I mean, you have to consider them, but and I don't dismiss them, but I put more into current form and what's happening now, and including injuries and the things that are going on, right? And look at the vibe of some teams too, right? I mean that's you have to play into that. You have to read into what you're seeing on the field and which teams are in sync with each other, which coaches are really out of sync with particularly their quarterback. And I've got to be honest. Well, one of them is off this week, and it's probably a good time. The Eagles is a good example of that.
It's a great time for their bye, even though it's so early.
So I'm just saying that you don't dismiss priors, but priors are more, I think, of a factor in weeks 1 and 2, let's say, than now we're heading into the second quarter of the season.
Let's go to the later games. Afternoon in Denver. 2 teams that I don't think any of us expected to be 500 a month in, but here we are, 2-2 each on the Raiders and the Broncos. Denver 3, total 36. Denver's pretty clean on the injury report, all things considered. The Raiders have half their roster on the injury report, basically. No Devontae Adams again. I think it's safe money to say Devontae Adams has played his last snap as a Las Vegas Raider.
Big distraction, too.
Michael Myers is going to be out again. Zamir White is out again for the Raiders. Max Crosby's questionable, which is better than it was a week ago from now.
He's a warrior.
3-36. This is one game I can't do anything with, Chris. I cannot touch it.
I like Denver.
Okay.
I like Denver.
Denver's defense has played very well the last 2 weeks.
Defense has been fantastic. Yeah. Sometimes, the Raiders are 2-2, really. But I think all the distractions with the Raiders is just going to be too much to overcome in this situation. Antonio Pierce, he declared bankruptcy?
Something like that happened during the offseason. I don't know if that was a recent
somebody
thing.
Was talking about that today at lunch. And, right now I think there's just a lot of distractions for this Raider team. And Denver, maybe a little bit better than we thought. Bo Nix, I mean, he hasn't exactly lit the world on fire, but their defense is really playing well. And with everything that's going on with the Raiders, I think, listen, I liked a lot better when it's 2.5, but now that it's 3, I still like Denver in this game. I think that's a good spot for them, and I think it's a bad spot for the Raiders.
Sean Payton's just got a handle on this team, I think, and they're playing for the guy now. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the style, but when you look at current form, I mean, the distractions for the Raiders combined with the injuries, and Denver's defense is they're going to come after. They're going to get after it with the right quarterback situation and offensive line.
Yeah, I'm with you guys.
It's going to be. I think this game. This is going to go. I think it goes through 3. It wouldn't shock me.
I'm with you. If you made me play,
we're in a Raider town.
I'd only take Denver, just because of what you both have said with the defense. Denver's defense showed us a lot last week as well. I mean, look, there's plenty of self-inflicted idiocy by the Jets in that game, but
no,
but Denver's defense was awesome most of the day in that game.
They were as good as the Jets defense.
Yeah, they held the Jets without a touchdown. You're going to win more times than not when that happens in this league. All right, let's go to San Francisco next, guys. It might be the hottest game in the history of Levi's Stadium, which is notorious for a bad sun field as well. So I'm interested to see if that plays a little bit of a role in this game, more so.
Is that right? It's going to be that hot?
That's what the report is this week. Again, we're not dealing with anything crazy like here, but
define hot.
As of right now, actually, kickoff 96 degrees on Sunday.
It's hot up there.
That's hot for the Bay Area. San Francisco 7.5, highest total of the week with 50. Still no Christian McCaffrey. Who knows when we'll see him at this rate?
November.
If we're lucky with bilateral Achilles tendonitis, that means it's tendonitis in both Achilles. If you don't know the medical, what bilateral means. But look, Arizona's defense, Chris, has been awful this year. They have just gotten toasted by everyone. And the Niners last week regained their form. Debo came back. Purdy looked really good. Kittle played his best game of the year. The Niners look like themselves in a blowout win over New England a week ago.
Well, number 7.5. I made the number 8, so I mean it's like right there for me. But I'm kind of with you. I think that I don't think the heat will bother Arizona that much. So that's the only thing.
You would think not. If anything, it might bother San Francisco.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time in Palo Alto, and I've seen it get over 100 there. They're a little bit down the peninsula. They tend to get some hot weather at times. I guess gun to my head, I'd take the favorite. But like I said, I made it 8. It's 7.5. I don't know. It looks like a tough one to me. The only thing I would say is a lot of times once you breach that 7, it can go to 9, 9.5 very easily. So if you're going to look to play the favorite, I'd probably lay the 7.5. But if you find a spot where you could lay $1.20 to lay 7, which really, in all honesty, does not exist in the market very often. But if you find a spot where you could lay $1.20 to lay 7, that's probably the way I would go. Although I'm not touting that side so much.
Biggest number on the board. This game is going to this a 1:00 game, or 1:05 afternoon. There's going to be carryover going to it. Public's going to love teasing the Niners as well.
Yep.
This game is going to continue to go. We will knock them down.
Let's go to L.A. next. Probably be a Packer home game at SoFi for this one. Green Bay 3 on the road. Green Bay 0-2 with Jordan Love, 2-0 with Malik Willis. Yeah, because that makes sense. Chris, 3.5 to 3. Not much of a move here. Total's been hit a little more, 47 to 48.5.
Kind of like the Rams a little in this spot. Like I said, Matthew Stafford, this guy's tough. And you look at the rest of that lineup, particularly on offense, and your first question, who are these guys? But I think Stafford right now and Coach McVay, I think they have enough to keep them in this game. 3.5, obviously, I would have liked the favorite or the dog a little bit more. But at 3, stops and makes you think. But I kind of like the Rams a little bit in this spot.
Two pretty good young coaches going at it. Should be a good game. Good two-way game, I think, overall. Yeah.
I crossed this one off immediately.
Yeah, tough one.
It's a tough one because you would expect at some point with Love, Green Bay puts together a big-time game. With all the injuries on the Rams side, again, still no Cooper Kupp, still no Puka Nacua, still all those offensive line injuries, still not close to 100% for the Rams, and it's going to be a while for that anyway. But I don't know. Jordan Love got more comfortable as the game went along. but it was also 28-0 when he got comfortable.
Yeah, right.
So how much can you take from that when Minnesota's not throwing the same stuff they were at him earlier in the game? So we'll see. We'll see how this all plays out. I think this number's right, in all honesty, right there at 3 on the road with a negative home field advantage for the Rams, all things considered, with what that ground's going to end up being. All right, let's go to the Giants at the Seahawks. Short week for Seattle. Mini bye for the Giants, so rest advantage for Big Blue, but Malik Neighbors did not clear concussion protocol. He's not going to play, which is a big deal since he's the Giants' best offensive weapon. Chris, up to 7 in this game. Seahawks played well enough to win. They just didn't get enough stops on Monday night, and quite frankly, they really got hosed by the refs in the fourth quarter as well when they were trying to mount a comeback. 38 first downs, which is the most in an NFL game in 8 years as well. They kind of deserve better if you bet Seattle on Monday night against Detroit, even with how well the Lions played in that game.
Well, we needed Seattle, and I was impressed with Seattle.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they had that many first downs. That's pretty darn good.
Chris, when I saw it at first on SportsCenter, I'm like, they had to have typoed that and went back and I'm like, it was 38.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
wow.
It's done.
No, I like that team. And Daniel Jones got benched now, right? I believe he's been benched.
Did that actually happen today?
Well, I know they talked about it.
Did I miss that? No, Daniel Jones is playing.
He's going to he's healthy. Is he going to start? Okay.
He looks okay
they
to me right
number
now.
One on the depth charts. Okay.
Yeah, looks okay to me at the moment. That obviously could be subject to change, but it looks okay to me.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of pressure on them.
I would start Drew Lock if I were the Giants. That's just me.
I've heard that Drew Lock might get the nod. Okay, I'm probably wrong.
Stay tuned.
Yeah,
Stay tuned.
But I got to tell you, I like the Seahawks in this spot. I really think the Giants just a dismal couple of years for this team. I know 2 years ago they looked pretty good. We thought they were on the up and up. I think that was fool's gold. They thought enough of Daniel Jones to sign him the following year to a big contract. Were totally cocky with Saquon Barkley. Let him go and I think he really wanted to stay a Giant. I think this team is being mismanaged from the top on down. I don't know about Dayball. I think, like I said, a couple years ago, I thought he was really a hell of a coach, but things have gone south since then. I like this Seahawks team. They had 38 first downs. I didn't realize that. But you know what? Their defense is pretty good. Now, I know they ran into a buzzsaw last week.
They also missed half their defense last week because of injuries.
Yeah, so
a little bit healthier expected this week.
I think this is a good spot for Seattle. I like them, and I'm going to try to run this game as high as I can. I was the first to go to 7, although a lot of people have gone at 7 since then. But I think this is a clear spot for the favorite.
Real quick on the injuries for Seattle's defense. Byron Murphy and Cameron Young, we know, are not playing. Boa Mafe is questionable now. Leonard Williams, who didn't play last week, he practiced. Nwosu, who didn't play last week, he practiced. So, Vinny, it's getting better injury-wise for Seattle, who, again, was decimated last week.
Yeah, I was impressed with Seattle, too. Chris brought it up. Because this was the toughest game that they had played. The Lions game was the tougher of the 4 opponents tougher than the 3 previous opponents. So this game is another one. I think it's going to go up. It's not going to come back down. I mean, we're probably going to go through 7 on this one. It's another public teaser play for sure.
Primetime football. Let's go to Sunday night.
Nice game.
The Pittsburgh Steelers and the Dallas Cowboys. Boy, if this game was a while back, this would have been the best game of the year.
Yeah.
Dallas has all sorts of injuries. Don't expect to see Micah Parsons. Don't expect to see DeMarcus Lawrence.
Right.
They're not going to play this week. And we probably won't see either of them until after the bye week in a few weeks. Steelers are going to still roll with Justin Fields. And quite frankly, Chris, if they ever go to Russell Wilson and it's not for a Justin Fields injury, they're doing it wrong. This should be Justin Fields' team. I know they lost last week. You said it. It was a brutal spot for them in Indianapolis. And quite frankly, I actually think they caught a bad break by Flacco having to come into the game instead of Richardson. I think they might have completed the comeback if Richardson stayed in that game even before he suffered that hip pointer. Chris, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a little surprised this game isn't more. 2.5 on Pittsburgh, and has been stuck there all week with the total actually going up from 42 to 44. That's basis on the Dallas injury. Also, Diggs looks like he's not going to play in that secondary as well for Dallas this week.
A lot of injuries for Dallas, and I was worried earlier in the week with the Steeler injuries. But the more I've looked at it, that team's a little healthier than I thought. I thought they were going to have more offensive line problems because they've lost a starter for the season, and I think they were missing another guy last week. But right now, it looks like their offensive line is getting healthier. Now, the one thing, Dallas has played, I don't know if it's the worst, but among the worst defense against the run in the NFL.
Yeah, no Jalen Warren this week for Pittsburgh yet again.
Okay.
But Najee's still healthy.
Yeah, Najee's still out there. They've run the ball very well. And if you look at that, of who they've run it against, they've run it against some very good run defenses. But the Steelers have been able to control the line of scrimmage. And Arthur Smith, I know he wasn't a great head coach, but some guys are just cut out to be coordinators. And I think he fits this team really well. I like the Steelers in this game. I didn't go crazy. I made them 3.5. I really thought they should be that high with all the injuries to Dallas. But and I think I don't know if we'll get to 3.5. 3.5 probably would be a take, certainly at this point in time from the wise guys. But I think we get to 3 anyway, and we'll see what happens after that. But I like the Steelers a lot in this spot.
Even with the injuries, just a great game to book. It's going to be it's in the primetime spots. Everything will be carrying over to it, which is definitely going to impact the number, which will probably go up. And I think it's more likely to go up than come down, given the injuries to the Cowboys and the fact that the carryover will be there as well.
Yeah.
I like Pittsburgh. I think they're the better football team. There's really, based off what we've seen through the first month, I don't think there's even any arguing it.
I agree.
If the Giants actually realize they have to put the ball in the end zone instead of kicking field goals last week, Dallas might have lost that game. And that's a team the Cowboys own. Scary times for the Cowboys, especially with those defensive injuries. This could go sideways very quickly for the Cowboys, especially if the Steelers do what I think they should do this week and win this game by more than 2.5 when it's all said and done. All right, let's go to Monday night. Kansas City 5.5 against New Orleans. I got to be honest with you guys. I'm surprised it's this high, especially with all the injuries on the Kansas City offense. No Rashee Rice. He's on IR designated to return. The Chiefs, Kareem Hunt looked fine in his first game back as a Kansas City Chief, but without Pacheco, at least for another few months. The offensive line, at least that left tackle position, is still a little bit of a up-in-the-air question mark for the Chiefs. They're doing it with their defense, which has been awesome so far through the first month. And for New Orleans, they're 2-2. You change a play in the Atlanta game and change one play in the Philly game. They're 4-0 right now. I'm surprised this is this high, Chris. I really am. And it's not that I love New Orleans. I'm just concerned at some point for Kansas City, those offensive injuries are going to catch up to them.
I'm kind of with you, Jeff. I strict number-wise, I made it 5.5.
Right on it.
And I'm looking, I said, shouldn't they be more than that? It's Kansas City and, defending Super Bowl champs 2 years in a row, and the Saints, I'm not so sure about them. Then I go back and look, and I start dissecting the game a little bit more, and then I come up, I said, 5.5 is right exactly where it should be. And I have a feeling the public will probably be on the Chiefs. But, if they bet them, they bet them. But the Chiefs right now, and listen, they might win the Super Bowl because it's kind of like the MO that they had last year. But right now, their offense particularly is not playing well. Defense has really carried the team last year as well as this year. And I think 5.5 is plenty. So I'm right on the number. But sometimes, again, I said it earlier, price tells you the winner sometimes. And it looks like a low price, which might be telling us the winner.
Total bet over. No real surprise here. It'll probably continue to get bet over. Carr is better than I think he's better than a lot of people thought. He's
historically plays well at Arrowhead as well.
He's very he's playing very consistent. Of course, you got Mahomes on the other side, so he's always a factor, even with the injuries. Probably the biggest advantage for KC, the head coaching advantage, I would say.
Although that's not for debate, 100%. That is, if New Orleans is going to lose this game, it probably is because of the coaching mismatch, even more so than the talent being still, even with the injuries, still better on Kansas City. Look, for New Orleans last week, I mean, they lost that game because they fumbled a punt into the end zone. They got recovered by Atlanta for a touchdown, and Carr threw a ghastly pick six. Other than that, they dominated the game for the most part.
The pros are waiting for this number to come up. Pro bettors
Do you
are
think
waiting
this
for
will hit
this.
6, Vinny?
I think so, because I think the public will drive it up because they'll bet the Chiefs.
I can tell you right now, if this thing hits 6, I'll be on New Orleans with the pros as
the
well.
fact that the pros haven't bet it yet tells you that they're waiting for that.
Well, if the public comes in on a bunch of favorites on Sunday and that carries over to Monday, you'll definitely see 6.
Yeah, and
maybe more.
Maybe more.
All right.
6 would be a take. 6.5 would be unbelievable if that happened. I don't think he'll hit 7 unless if there's some injury.
I highly doubt 7, but 6.5 might definitely get.
I think New Orleans is good at 5.5. I definitely will think they're good at 6 or 6.5. We'll have more on that as we go through the weekend, and of course on Monday on Football Frenzy as well. But before we go, we have to bring it up because our good friend Chris Andrews is off to a roaring start with his picks this year.
Giving money away.
A 4-2 week last week pushes
5-2.
Excuse me, you're right. 5-2 pushes you to 10 games over 500 for the year, and you can go with it, Sean. Go for it. Here's what Chris has this week, right on the screen.
Why the hell are we working?
You're starting tonight with UNLV laying 6. Chris is on Boston College plus the 1. Arizona, you can actually get a 6.5 now, so you do even better than what Chris had for this one. Michigan plus 1.5 at Washington, and then you're keeping it in Seattle, but with the Seahawks at 6.5, which is the number we gave you
I
on
can
this.
see both games if I go visit my son.
There you go. Those are the 5 for Chris this week, who, again, red hot to begin the season. Gentlemen, fun as always.
Great.
Thank you.
The one guy said it was the best show of the week. I think for information, for a serious handicapper, probably the best show.
Chris, you have no argument for me, and it's a testament to you two on that side of the desk for sure.
Jeff. Good job,
thanks,
everybody.
Jeff.
Crew.
And the crew, obviously, and Sean, Jerry,
The
great
chat.
work as always.
Team effort, buddy boy.
Oh,
Team
it
effort.
sure
pal.
is. Chat, thank you as always. Tomorrow morning, we're back. Alex White and I will be here at 8 a.m. College football preview, and not only that, we might even actually talk some baseball tomorrow morning.
We have
Let
to.
me say,
go
those
ahead.
shows are damn good too.
Yeah.
The morning show on Saturday, the morning show on Sunday, getting that last minute information. Again, if you're any kind of a serious handicapper, you don't want to miss those shows.
Division series get going in baseball tomorrow, and
What about 10 a.m.?
Tigers and Guardians are 10:08 Pacific time, and I said it to Vinny on Punchlines. The 2 NL series are heavy hitters, to say the very least, with those rivalries right away.
Oh, yeah.
Mets and Phillies, Dodgers and Padres right out of the gate.
There is a lot of hate there.
You got both matchups where both teams hate the hell out of each other.
My wife's aunt lives in San Diego. She hates the Dodgers so bad.
How bad?
Ann is not my aunt, but
I know this.
That was perfect. That was perfect. The ghosts have showed up. The ghosts of October.
Wow.
Oh, man. Vinny, Chris, thank you as always. We're back tomorrow morning, 8 in the morning. Myself, Alex White. Get you ready for Saturday in college football and the Major League Baseball playoffs here on Sports by the Book.